Good afternoon. It's an honor for me to participate at this very distinguished conference, although I'm sorry to be doing that remotely. I congratulate the organizers and thank the Economist for this initiative, and it sees such distinguished personalities gathered in North Macedonia, NATO's newest ally. And we will discuss the present and the future of the Western Balkans, such an important theme for all of us. And as the title of this year's edition of the summit indicates, there are two elements today and also in the future that are key to the advancement, peace and stability of the Western Balkans and the whole of Euro-Atlantic region. One is security and the other is solidarity. So both security and solidarity have been informing NATO's engagement in the Western Balkans since the very early times. Even more so, they will be the main themes of the alliance's engagement also in the future. They are also the key principles that inspire the alliance in facing the challenges of the post-pandemic world and the challenges that are faced by all countries of the Western Balkans and countries in the whole of Euro-Atlantic region. Today, as you all gather in Skopje to take part in this very timely discussion, let me start by concentrating on North Macedonia. Minister Shekerinska, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 1 year ago, a bit more than 1 year ago, North Macedonia formally became a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Our 30th ally, a sovereign country joining a strong alliance. After years of partnership, cooperation and strong commitment to reform, North Macedonia sits at the NATO table, an equal voice in shaping alliance's decisions. It's a remarkable achievement both for NATO and for North Macedonia. For NATO, because it demonstrates that the open door policy that is one of our cornerstones of the Washington Treaty is still valid and applicable. NATO's open doors policy is the quintessence of the principle of inclusiveness and solidarity. So it's just enough to look at the map of the Western Balkans at the end of the 90s with a map of the region today. And what we will see is that most of the countries today that were just partners, today, vast majority of them is a full member of NATO. So North Macedonia is just the last success story among the countries of the region, but also one that sets a positive example for other NATO's partners in Western Balkans and beyond that have membership aspirations. And indeed, it's just not just a membership of North Macedonia itself, but also the fact that Macedonia has turned from, in less than 2 decades, from a security consumer into security provider. It contributes to our operations, missions, like all the other countries from the Western Balkans. So that's the principle of solidarity in action. All countries of Western Balkans take active part in both the discussions, in conceptual development, but also in our operations, deployments and exercises. They contribute to NATO's peacekeeping mission in Kosovo through KFOR, to the training mission in Iraq. They are deployed in the EFP battle groups in NATO's eastern borders, northeastern borders. They also participate and host a number of important NATO exercises. Thus, I also want to say that it's not just about interoperability and participation in the political discussion and our operations and development, but also, as we know, security is very much the basis of prosperity. And for the Western Balkans, just like any other allies of NATO, indeed the prosperity remains an aim that we are all striving for. Not less after the during the COVID-19 and after the pandemic. Let me just remind that, of course, the NATO allies played an important role through the NATO Euro-Atlantic Disaster Response Coordination Center, providing timely support to each other throughout the whole pandemic, but also to allies and partners in need. And again, that showed the solidarity that we all have. And in situations like that, it's our capabilities, our military capabilities, our doctors, our logistics specialists, and also our solidarity to each other that is more important than ever. So, in that respect, NATO support to the region, to the Western Balkans during the pandemic, showed to the wider global public that indeed NATO is not only a military alliance, it's a political military alliance of free countries sharing common values and principles and ready to stand up for each other. Now, when we look to the future, and next week we have the NATO Defense Ministerial meeting, and North Macedonia and other countries in the region will be participating there. And when we look at the next summit, of course, the big question is how we adapt the alliance, how we, as individual allies, adapt ourselves, and how we work together to face the challenges of the future. So, first of all, we have to remain vigilant, we have to remain united. So, with a very clear mind, we have to commit to each other that the transatlantic unity on both sides of the Atlantic has to be greater today than at any time since the end of the Cold War, because we are at a pivotal moment for our shared security. We face rather more dangerous and more competitive world. We don't just face one challenge, but multiple complex challenges, from pandemics to infodemics, from climate change to disruptive technologies. But also, we clearly understand that sometimes the lines between peace and war, civilian and military responsibilities, state and non-state actors are increasingly blurred. So awareness, readiness, investment in our internal capabilities of the whole society approach, whole government approach, readiness to respond to hybrid threats, be it cyber, be it disinformation, influence operations, to protect our citizens, our values and democracies is crucial. We all know that Russia's behavior has been more aggressive than ever, more oppressive at home. We also know that China uses its economic and military might to control its own people, but also does not hesitate to coerce other countries. It also attempts to assert control over global supply chains, attempts to control critical infrastructure, and conducts other actions that are questionable. We also face more frequent and sophisticated cyber attacks. None of us can face these challenges alone. No country, however big, no region, no continent, whatever rich. We need partners, we need friends, and in NATO we are not alone. Together we represent 30 different nations and 1 billion people, half of the world's economic and military might. And together we are adapting to a more uncertain world. At our summit in June, we agreed to do even more as the alliance and to prepare for the next decade and beyond. The NATO 2030 agenda is ambitious, and it's meant to guarantee our future security. So in that respect, no doubt all allies have increased their commitments, defense spending, that concerns also Western Balkan allies. We've invested in high-end capabilities and boosted readiness of our forces, increased exercise activities, be it on land, at sea, and in the air. We have 2 new domains that we have added to our operations, which is the cyber and space. And we have deployed our troops to defend and deter our adversaries. We are sharpening our technological edge and launching new Defense Innovation Accelerator Innovation Fund. And this has the aim to support our industry, startups and academics working on cutting-edge technologies. We're also strengthening our resilience of our critical infrastructure and supply chains. And that is meant, again, to reduce vulnerabilities of all our countries, all our societies. The big issue is the rules-based international order. How do we, as allies, as partners globally, engage with like-minded countries, organizations, including in areas beyond the Euro-Atlantic region, to defend that multilateral rules-based order that we have all agreed upon. I also have to say that Western Balkans, of course, is central on NATO's agenda because it's central to the security of the whole Euro-Atlantic region. So for us, the crucial point is that the region's security and development becomes irreversible. That is why we are paying so much attention to Western Balkans. And we know that Western Balkans is not immune to all the challenges that we just discussed and that I mentioned, but also, for example, the climate change and the security that has now become the core of NATO's agenda. So in that respect, indeed, when we look at the future, both the capability, national capability of allies, the political consensus, the transatlantic unity and preparations for the decision makings that we will make in the next summit at Madrid that will form the strategic concept for NATO, next strategic concept or updated strategic concept, will very much both contain the input of Western Balkan allies, but also very much means that the Western Balkans is and will remain the center of the Euro-Atlantic security. And with this, I wish you a very successful conference and thank you for the attention.